The scream cut through the salt-heavy air just as the yacht lurched violently to the side. People gasped, glass shattered. A wave rose higher than it should have, slamming against the polished white hull like a living thing. And then Hyun Jae-min was gone. 1 second he was standing at the edge of the yacht, dressed in a tailored ivory suit, smiling politely at guests who didn't truly know who he was or what his name meant in the darker corners of Korea. The next second, the sea swallowed him whole. "Someone fell in!" a woman shrieked. Panic rippled through the wedding guests gathered along Seorim Bay. Phones flew up instinctively, recording instead of helping. The yacht's engines cut late, far too late. The current near the rocks was vicious today. Anyone local knew that. Anyone experienced knew a body could disappear in seconds. Zola and Kim didn't hesitate. She was already running before the words fully registered. Her dark skin glistened under the sun as she tore off her whistle, kicked off her sandals, and vaulted over the low barrier separating the public beach from the private dock. Years of training took over. Years of saving people who thought the ocean was decoration instead of danger. She dove. Cold swallowed her. Sound vanished. The water churned violently, pulling her sideways, dragging her deeper. Her lungs burned as she forced her eyes open, scanning through the blur of bubbles and fabric. Then she saw him. Hyun Jae-min was sinking fast, suit ballooning around him, one arm flailing weakly as the current slammed his body against the yacht's shadow. Blood bloomed faintly near his temple. He must have hit the railing on the way down. Zola kicked harder. She wrapped an arm around his chest, locking her grip beneath his armpits, and angled her body upward. He was heavier than he looked. Panic made people dead weight, and he was already losing consciousness. "Don't you dare," she muttered through clenched teeth underwater. "Not today." The current fought her all the way up. When they broke the surface, she gasped, dragging in air as she screamed, "Man overboard! Clear the water!" Hands reached out from the dock. Someone threw a rope too late. Zola ignored them all, focusing on keeping his head above water as another wave slammed into her back. He coughed weakly, eyes fluttering. "Stay with me," she said sharply. "Look at me, breathe. His voice broke, swallowed by seawater as he choked. She hauled him forward, every muscle screaming, until rough hands finally grabbed them. Together they dragged his limp body onto the dock. The world exploded into noise. "Call an ambulance." "Is he breathing?" "Oh my God, that's him!" Zola dropped to her knees beside him instantly, fingers already at his neck. A pulse, weak, but there. "Step back," she ordered, her voice carrying authority that made even the richest guests hesitate. "Give him space." She tore open his suit, jacket, pressed her ear to his chest, and listened. His breathing was shallow, irregular. "Hey," she said, slapping his cheek lightly. "You're not done yet. Stay with me." His eyes opened briefly. Dark, sharp, even through the haze. They locked on her face as if she were the only solid thing in the world. "You jumped," he whispered hoarsely. "Yeah," she said, "that's my job." Sirens wailed in the distance. As paramedics rushed forward, Zola finally leaned back, chest heaving, hands trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. She scrubbed seawater from her face and stood, turning instinctively to scan the crowd. That's when she saw her. The woman stood apart from the chaos, just beyond the edge of the dock, shaded by a wide parasol. She was dressed in black, elegant and untouched, not a single hair out of place. Her eyes weren't on the unconscious man being loaded onto a stretcher. They were on Zola. The woman smiled slowly. Not relief, not gratitude, recognition. Then, deliberately, she let something slip from her fingers. An envelope. It landed at her feet. Zola frowned, taking a step forward, but when she looked up again, the woman was already walking away, disappearing into the line of luxury cars waiting beyond the gates. A chill crawled up Zola's spine. "Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country or city in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. And if you enjoy intense stories like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Now, let's continue. 2 days later, Zola couldn't escape her own face. It stared back at her from her cracked phone screen as she sat on the edge of her narrow bed, towel wrapped around her damp hair. The video had been uploaded from at least 20 different angles. Her diving into the water, her dragging him out, her shouting orders like she owned the dock. Black, lifeguard saves groom during luxury yacht wedding, one caption read. Another was worse. Mystery woman rescues Juan heir from death. Her stomach tightened. Juan. She should have known. Only one family could shut down half of Siorim Bay for a wedding and make the police bow while doing it. The view count ticked higher by the second. This is bad, she murmured to herself. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her supervisor flashed on the screen. We need to talk. Urgently. Before she could respond, there was a knock at her door. Zola froze. She hadn't told anyone where she lived. The apartment was small, tucked above a closed convenience store, the kind of place people passed without looking twice. Slowly, she stood and moved toward the door, every instinct screaming caution. Who is it? She called. Korean National Intelligence Service, a woman's voice replied calmly. My name is Kim Soo-jin. The name hit her like a slap. Zola opened the door just enough to see her. It was the woman from the dock. Up close, she was even more composed. Beautiful in a way that felt sharpened, controlled. Her eyes flicked briefly over Zola's bare feet, the small apartment, the lifeguard jacket hanging by the door. May I come in? Soo-jin asked. I didn't call anyone, Zola said flatly. Soo-jin smiled faintly and held up a badge. We came to you. Against her better judgment, Zola stepped aside. Soo-jin entered without hesitation, glancing around as if memorizing everything. You handled yourself well at the bay, she said. Very well. You watched, Zola replied. Yes, Soo-jin said easily. And so did the world. Zola crossed her arms. If this is about the video, it's not, Soo-jin interrupted. It's about what the video didn't show. She reached into her bag and placed the envelope on the table. The same one. Zola's jaw tightened. You dropped that. No, Soo-jin said. I gave it to you. Inside were photographs, grainy, taken from a distance, of Hyun Jae-min, of men watching him, of a gun. Your rescue wasn't an accident, Soo-jin continued. And his fall wasn't either. Zola's pulse spiked. What are you saying? I'm saying powerful people want him dead, Soo-jin said softly. And now, because of you, they know who saved him. Zola laughed once, sharply. I'm a lifeguard. And a former nurse, Soo-jin added. With excellent reflexes, no criminal record, and a visa situation that could become complicated. Silence stretched between them. What do you want? Zola asked. Soo-jin met her gaze. A job, temporary. Protect Hyun Jae-min until we eliminate the threat. And if I say no? Soo-jin's smile faded. Then I can't guarantee your safety. A sudden click sounded outside the window. Zola turned just in time to see a shadow pull back, a camera lens glinting briefly before disappearing down the fire. Escape. Her breath caught. Soo-jin followed her gaze and smiled again, slow and knowing. Think carefully, she said. This world doesn't forget faces. Zola stood there, heart pounding, realizing her life had already tipped into something dark and unstoppable. And she had no idea yet that the man she saved wasn't just a wealthy heir. He was a king in a world built on blood. Zola didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw water swallowing a man in an ivory suit. She saw Soo-jin's smile, sharp, knowing. She saw the camera lens flashing outside her window like a single, unblinking eye. Morning came without relief. Her phone buzzed just after sunrise. An unfamiliar number. She stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Hello?" "You took longer than expected," Hyun Jae-min said on the other end, his voice low, steady, unmistakably calm for a man who had nearly drowned 2 days earlier. Zola straightened. "How did you get this number?" A pause, then a quiet exhale. "You saved my life. Getting your number was the easy part." "I didn't agree to anything yet," she said sharply. "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm calling instead of sending someone." Something in his tone, controlled, restrained, made her listen despite herself. "There's a car waiting downstairs," he continued. "Black sedan, tinted windows, no logos. If you want answers, get in. If you don't, I won't call again." "And if I don't want to be followed?" Zola asked. "You already are." The line went dead. Zola cursed under her breath. She paced her apartment, heart racing, replaying Soo-jin's words. Powerful people want him dead. They know who saved him. She glanced at the window again, half expecting another shadow. She grabbed her jacket, slipped her phone into her pocket, and locked the door behind her. The black sedan idled at the curb exactly as promised. The driver didn't speak as she got in. The car pulled away smoothly, merging into traffic as if it had always belonged there. They drove in silence for nearly 40 minutes, leaving the crowded city behind. Buildings gave way to gates. Gates gave way to walls. By the time the car slowed, Zola realized they were somewhere entirely different. Higher, quieter, guarded. Jin Sung Estate. She knew the name. Everyone in Busan did. It wasn't just a home, it was a fortress masquerading as luxury. The gates opened without pause. Inside, everything was too perfect. Manicured gardens, stone paths, security cameras hidden so well she only noticed them because she was trained to look. The car stopped beneath a wide overhang. Hyun Jae-min was waiting. He stood alone, dressed simply now. Dark shirt, tailored slacks. No sign of the man who had been paraded in ivory and gold days earlier. There was a faint bruise along his temple, proof he hadn't imagined the fall. Zola stepped out of the car and faced him. For a moment, neither spoke. "You look different," he said finally. "So do you," she replied. A corner of his mouth lifted. "Fair." They walked inside together, past guards who bowed slightly to him and glanced at her with open curiosity. The doors closed behind them with a heavy, final sound. "I didn't want her here when we spoke," Hyun Jae-min said as they moved through a long corridor. "Soo-jin," Zola said. "Yes." His jaw tightened. "She's persuasive." That's one word for it. They entered a private training room, wide, empty, mirrors lining one wall, mats stacked neatly in the corner. The door shut automatically behind them. "This is where you decide," he said. "Not her, not the NES, you." Zola crossed her arms. "I don't even know who you really are." His gaze held hers. "You know what the public knows. You don't know what my enemies know." "And what's that?" she pressed. "That my death would solve a lot of problems." The bluntness of it sent a chill through her. "You're not just an heir," she said slowly. "No," he agreed. "I run things." She laughed once, incredulous. "You almost died because of a wedding." "I almost died because I trusted the wrong people," he corrected. Silence stretched again. "You don't trust Soo-jin," Zola said. "I don't trust anyone who appears too quickly with answers," he replied. "Including you." That stung more than she expected. "I didn't ask for this," she snapped. "I did my job." "And now your job has changed," he said quietly. "Whether you accept it or not." Zola clenched her fists. "You think I want to be part of whatever this is? I save people, that's it." "Then save me again," he said. "On your terms." He gestured to the mats. "Show me how you fight." She blinked. "What?" "If you're going to stand between me and the people trying to kill me, I need to know what you're capable of." Zola hesitated, then stepped forward, dropping her bag. "You sure?" His eyes flicked briefly to her hands. "I wouldn't have called you if I wasn't." They circled each other slowly. "You come at me," he said. "Don't hold back." "You don't know me well enough to say that," she replied, and moved. She closed the distance fast, grabbing his wrist, twisting, using his momentum against him. He reacted quicker than she expected, pivoting, trying to break free. "Again," he said, breath steady. They clashed harder this time. Grips, counters, balance shifts. He was trained, well trained, but he fought like someone used to commanding rooms, not surviving chaos. Zola swept his legs out from under him and pinned him to the mat in seconds. Her knee pressed into his chest. His pulse thundered beneath her palm. "Still alive," she said quietly. For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Respect, surprise, something darker. "Get off me," he said softly. She did. They stood there, breathing hard. "You fight like someone who's been cornered before," he said. "And you fight like someone who expects backup," she shot back. A faint smile appeared. "Fair." He walked to a bench and sat, rubbing his wrist. "I want to change things," he said suddenly. "The Empire, the way it works, the blood it's built on." Zola scoffed. "Men like you always say that." "Men like me rarely get a second chance," he replied. "You gave me one." She looked away, conflicted. "I want to invest in hospitals," he continued. "Coastal rescue programs, legitimate businesses. I'm tired of ruling through fear." "And your family?" she asked. His expression hardened. "My uncle doesn't share my vision." Something clicked in her chest. That night, Zola lay awake in the guest room they'd assigned her. The bed was too soft, the silence too thick. Just after midnight, she heard it. A whisper. She sat up slowly, heart hammering. The sound came again, low, urgent, coming from the corridor. Zola slipped out of bed, moving silently toward the door. She cracked it open just enough to see a shadow pass by. Voices murmured. "Not yet," one said. "Wedding," another replied. Her blood ran cold. She retreated, locking the door quietly behind her. As she turned back toward the bed, her eyes landed on something new. A tiny red light, embedded high in the corner of the room, watching her. Zola's breath caught as the truth settled in. The danger wasn't just outside the estate. It was already inside. And somewhere in this fortress, someone was planning the next fall. Zola didn't move for a long time. She stood in the middle of the guest room, staring at the tiny red light pulsing faintly from the corner near the ceiling. It was almost elegant in how well it was hidden, no larger than a grain of rice, angled perfectly toward the bed and the door. Whoever installed it knew exactly what they were doing. Her first instinct was to rip it out. Her second instinct, stronger, sharper, told her not to. If she destroyed it, whoever was watching would know she discovered it. And if they were watching her, they were already several steps ahead. Slowly, she forced her body to relax. She yawned deliberately, stretched, even muttered to herself like someone half asleep. Then she climbed back into bed, turning her back to the camera, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack her ribs. She lay there for hours, replaying everything. The whispers in the hallway, Soo-jin's perfectly timed appearance, Hyun Jae-min's calm, guarded eyes. The way the estate felt less like a sanctuary and more like a beautifully dressed trap. At dawn, she rose quietly and showered, keeping her movements slow and unremarkable. She dressed in neutral clothes, tied her hair back, and left the room as if nothing were wrong. The corridor was empty, but the feeling of being watched followed her every step. She found Hyun Jae-min in the private dining room, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sea. He held a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking, his reflection faint in the glass. You didn't sleep, he said without turning around. Neither did you, Zola replied. He faced her then, eyes narrowing slightly. Something wrong? She studied his face carefully. If he knew about the camera, he gave no sign. My room is bugged, she said flatly. His jaw tightened. Are you sure? There's a camera, she continued. Hidden, professional. Someone inside this house is watching me. Silence dropped like a blade between them. I didn't authorize that, he said finally. I know, she replied. If you had, I'd already be gone. That earned her a faint, grim smile. He moved to the table and pressed a button beneath its edge. The room sealed automatically, shutters closing, white noise humming softly through hidden speakers. No audio leaks, he said. Speak freely. Good, Zola said. Because I don't think Soo Jin is who she says she is. His gaze sharpened. Explain. She told him everything. The envelope, the photographs, the way Soo Jin had framed the threat, the camera, the whispers about the wedding. When she finished, the room felt colder. My uncle, Hyun Jae-min said quietly. He's been pushing for control since my father's health declined. So you suspect him, Zola said. I suspected ambition, he replied. I didn't suspect coordination. With Soo Jin, she added. Yes. He looked away briefly. She was introduced to us through official channels, NIS clearance. Or so we were told. You never verified? Zola asked. I did, he said. After the rescue, the files were real. Or made to look real. Her stomach dropped. Someone went to a lot of trouble. Yes, he agreed. Which means this isn't about removing me quietly anymore. It's about control, she said. Public, permanent. He nodded once. The wedding? Whose? She asked. His mouth curved humorlessly. Mine. Zola stared at him. You're engaged? He hesitated. Was. Her chest tightened. To who? To the woman everyone trusts, he said softly. The woman who's been by my side for 5 years. Realization slammed into her. Soo Jin. He didn't deny it. Jesus, Zola breathed. She's your fiancée? Officially, he said. Privately, she's been planning my funeral. Zola ran a hand through her hair. You should call the police. He laughed bitterly. And tell them what? That my fiancé, my uncle, and a rogue intelligence agent are plotting to kill me. Half of them answer to my family. The other half answer to money. So what's your plan? She asked. His eyes lifted to meet hers. I need proof. And you think I'm bait? Zola said. Yes, he said honestly. And protection. She studied him for a long moment. You realize if this goes wrong, I die too. I know, he said quietly. That's why I won't force you. She turned toward the window, watching waves crash against the cliffs far below. You should send me away, she said. Out of the country, somewhere safe. And let them hunt you instead, he asked. You're already marked. She closed her eyes. Damn it, she muttered. I hate men like you. Because we drag people into our messes? He asked. No, she said. Because you know exactly how dangerous this is and you still look calm. He met her gaze again. Panic wastes time. Fine, she said abruptly. I'll stay. But we do this my way. I wouldn't expect anything else, he replied. That afternoon, Zola began quietly mapping the estate. She catalogued blind spots, guard rotations, access points. She pretended to train with Hyun Jae-min, laughing loudly, playing her role, all while watching reflections and listening for footsteps. Soo Jin arrived just before sunset. She walked in like she owned the place, heels clicking softly against marble floors, her smile warm and familiar. You're healing well, she said to Hyun Jae-min, touching his arm lightly. I am, he replied, watching her closely. Thanks to Zola. Soo Jin turned her gaze to Zola. We owe you so much. Zola smiled back, forcing warmth into her eyes. Just doing my job. Sujin's eyes flicked briefly toward the corridor leading to the guest rooms. Zola noticed. That night, Zola pretended to sleep early. When the whispers came again, she was ready. She slipped out of bed silently, barefoot, pressing herself against the wall. The voices were closer now, urgent. "Camera's still active," one whispered. "She hasn't noticed," another replied. Zola's blood turned to ice. She followed the sound carefully until she reached a small service door she hadn't noticed before. It was ajar, faint light spilling out. Inside, she saw him, Hwan Sang-ho. Hyun Jae-min's uncle stood with his back to her, speaking into a phone. His voice was low, controlled. "The girl is useful," he said. "Let her get close. When the time comes, she'll be blamed." Zola's hand curled into a fist. "The serum is ready," Sang-ho continued. "The wedding will end everything." A floorboard creaked beneath her foot. Sang-ho turned sharply. Their eyes met. For a split second, neither moved. Then Sang-ho smiled. "So," he said smoothly, "you're not asleep after all." Zola stepped fully into the light. "You shouldn't have put the camera in my room." His smile widened. "You shouldn't have listened at doors." "Your nephew deserves better," she said. "He deserves to die," Sang-ho replied coldly, "for trying to change things that work." Footsteps sounded behind her. Zola spun and found herself staring down the barrel of a gun. Sujin stood there, calm as ever. "You really are impressive," Sujin said softly. "I hoped you'd survive long enough to be useful." Zola raised her hand slowly. "You're making a mistake." Sujin smiled. "No, I'm correcting one." Sang-ho stepped closer. "Tie her up. We'll deal with her after the wedding." Zola's mind raced. Her heart hammered, but her voice stayed steady. "You're underestimating him," she said. "Hyun Jae-min isn't stupid." Sujin tilted her head. "Neither are we." The gun pressed harder into Zola's chest, and in that moment, she realized the truth too late. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a performance, and she had just stepped onto the stage. The rope cut into Zola's wrists as they shoved her into the chair. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She focused on breathing, on keeping her pulse steady even as fear clawed at her throat. Panic would make her sloppy, and sloppy would get her killed. Sujin circled her slowly, heels tapping against the concrete floor of the service room. The lights overhead flickered faintly, casting long shadows across Sang-ho's face as he leaned against the table, arms folded, watching with detached satisfaction. "You disappoint me," Sujin said calmly. "I thought you'd last longer without getting curious." Zola lifted her chin. "You put a camera in my room. That's not curiosity. That's survival." Sujin smiled. "You should have pretended not to notice." "I did," Zola shot back. "Until you got sloppy." Sang-ho chuckled. "She has teeth. I see why my nephew likes her." Zola's jaw clenched. "If you think he's going to forgive this—" "He doesn't need to forgive it," Sang-ho interrupted. "He just needs to die quietly." Sujin stopped in front of Zola and crouched, meeting her eye level. "You were never meant to be the hero," she said softly. "You were meant to be the witness." "Witness to what?" Zola demanded. "To his final mistake," Sujin replied. "Trusting the wrong woman." Zola's blood ran cold. "You're going to frame me." Sujin didn't deny it. "The world already knows your face. The viral video helped. A foreigner. No powerful family. No protection." "You loved him," Zola said suddenly. For the first time, Sujin's expression cracked. Just slightly. "I loved what he represented," she said after a moment. "And when he decided to become something else, he signed his own death warrant." Sang-ho pushed off the table. "Enough talking. We need to move. The wedding is in 4 days." Zola's heart skipped. 4 days. That wasn't long. Not long at all. Sujin stood and nodded toward the door. "Keep her here for now. She'll be useful later." They left without another glance. The door slammed shut. Silence rushed in, thick and suffocating. Zola tested the ropes. Immediately. Tight, professional knots. She twisted her wrists, ignoring the burn, searching for slack. Nothing. Think, she whispered to herself. Think. Minutes passed, or hours. She wasn't sure. Then she heard footsteps again. The door opened slowly. Hyun Jae-min stepped inside. Relief hit her so hard she almost sagged forward, but she forced herself to stay still. He closed the door behind him and locked it. "You shouldn't be here," she said urgently. I know," he replied quietly. He walked closer, eyes scanning the ropes, the faint red marks on her skin. "You heard everything," he said. "Yes," she breathed. "They're planning to kill you at the wedding." He nodded once. "I know." Her heart dropped. "Then why aren't you stopping them?" He met her gaze, something fierce and resolute burning there. "Because I need them to believe they're winning." He untied the ropes quickly, hands steady. Zola gasped as blood rushed back into her wrists. "You're insane." "Probably," he said. "But it's the only way." She stood, rubbing her arms. "They put a camera in my room. They're watching everything." "They were," he said. "We rerouted the feed." Her eyes widened. "We?" "Director Min Seok," he replied. "The real NIS." Zola stared at him. "You trusted another intelligence agent." "I didn't," he said. "You did." She exhaled sharply. "He contacted me at the safe house, warned me about Soo Jin." Hyun Jae-min nodded. "He contacted me too, after you didn't come back from your walk." Her chest tightened. "So this was a setup?" "Yes," he said. "For them." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sang-ho thinks you're isolated. Soo Jin thinks she's in control. They don't know we've been feeding them false information for weeks." "Weeks?" Zola repeated. "You said 4 days." He hesitated. "I said the wedding is in 4 days. I didn't say we only had 4 days." She searched his face. "You planned this before you fell into the water." His gaze dropped. "I suspected them. I didn't have proof. I needed a catalyst." "You used me," she said quietly. "I didn't intend to," he replied immediately. "But when you saved me, everything accelerated." Her throat tightened. "You let them target me." "I stepped in before they could kill you," he said. "That matters." "It doesn't feel like it," she snapped. Silence hung heavy between them. "I won't apologize for wanting to survive," he said finally. "But I am sorry for putting you in danger." She studied him for a long moment. "You better make this worth it." He met her gaze. "I will." That night, Zola moved into Hyun Jae-min's private wing. Security doubled. Routes changed. The estate transformed into a controlled war zone masked by elegance. Soo Jin noticed. "You're keeping her close," she said over dinner, eyes flicking toward Zola. "Afraid she'll disappear?" Hyun Jae-min smiled politely. "I value loyalty." Zola forced a smile and raised her glass. "I feel honored." Under the table, Hyun Jae-min's hand brushed hers briefly. A silent apology. A promise. Later, alone in the training room, Zola confronted him. "You should have told me," she said. "I could have handled it." "I didn't know if I could trust you yet," he replied. She laughed humorlessly. "But you trusted me with your life." "That's different," he said. "How?" "Because you jumped without thinking," he said. "That kind of instinct can't be faked." Her expression softened despite herself. They trained harder after that. Longer sessions, real scenarios, ambush drills, medical simulations. "You hesitate when you think someone might be innocent," he said during one session. "Because sometimes they are," she replied. "In my world," he said, "hesitation gets people killed." "And in mine," she shot back, "blind violence does." Their arguments became sharper, louder. And underneath it all, something dangerous and electric grew. 3 nights before the wedding, Director Min Seok finally revealed the full plan. "They intend to poison you," he said over a secure call. "The serum will mimic cardiac arrest." Zola's breath caught. "Then don't drink anything." Hyun Jae-min shook his head. No, I will. She stared at him. You're out of your mind. If I don't, he said calmly, they won't expose themselves. And if the dosage is wrong? She demanded. If you actually die? His gaze didn't waver. That's why you'll be there. Her chest tightened painfully. You're asking me to watch you die. I'm asking you to bring me back, he said softly. Silence stretched. I was a nurse, Zola said finally. Not a miracle worker. I trust you, he replied. Her voice broke. That's not fair. No, he agreed. It's not. The night before the wedding, Zola couldn't sleep again. She stood on the balcony, staring out at the dark sea, when Hyun Jae-min joined her. If this goes wrong, she said quietly, I'll never forgive you. He leaned against the railing beside her. If it goes right, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Not the air, not the kingpin, just a man standing on the edge of a cliff he'd built himself. Promise me one thing, she said. What? He asked. After this, she said, no more lies. He nodded. I promise. Far below, the waves crashed relentlessly against the rocks. And somewhere inside the estate, Soo-jin finalized her plans, confident the trap was set, unaware that the man she planned to bury was preparing to rise from the dead. The wedding day arrived wrapped in silk and silence. From the outside, the Aurora Grand Hotel looked like a palace carved from glass and light, perched above the sea in Ulsan like it belonged to another world entirely. Helicopters circled lazily overhead. Black cars lined the curved driveway in perfect symmetry. Guests in tailored suits and jeweled gowns stepped onto crimson carpets, smiling for cameras, unaware they were walking into a carefully choreographed lie. Inside, everything gleamed. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids, gold-trimmed invitations embossed with names that carried weight in boardrooms and back alleys alike. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a public declaration of power. Zola felt it the moment she stepped inside. The air was different, heavier, charged. She adjusted the discreet earpiece tucked beneath her hair and scanned the ballroom slowly, her posture relaxed, her expression neutral. To everyone else, she was just part of the groom's expanded security detail, another hired professional blending into the background. To her, every smile looked like a mask. East entrance clear, a voice murmured in her ear. Copy, Zola replied softly. Keep eyes on the balcony. She spotted Soo-jin almost immediately. The woman stood near the front, radiant in an ivory gown that clung to her perfectly, her hair swept back in an elegant twist. She laughed lightly at something Sang-ho whispered to her, fingers resting possessively on his arm. The sight made Zola's stomach twist. She remembered the gun at her chest, the calm in Soo-jin's eyes, the certainty. She looks confident, Zola muttered under her breath. She thinks today ends with her winning. Hyun Jae-min's voice replied quietly through the earpiece. Zola glanced toward the side corridor just as he stepped into view. He looked every inch the groom. Tailored black suit, crisp white shirt, calm smile. No sign of fear on his face. If she didn't know better, she would have believed it was real. You ready? She asked softly as he approached. As I'll ever be, he replied. She studied his face, searching for doubt, hesitation, anything. I don't like this, she said. One wrong variable. I know, he interrupted gently. That's why I need you focused, not afraid. Her jaw tightened. I can be both. A faint smile touched his lips. That's why you're here. The music shifted. Guests began to take their seats. Soo-jin turned then, her eyes finding Hyun Jae-min instantly. Her smile softened, warmed, transformed into something that looked dangerously like love. Zola felt a flash of anger she didn't expect. She's good, she murmured. She's been practicing for years, he replied. As Hyun Jae-min walked toward the altar, Zola moved with him, her eyes never stopping. She tracked exits, security personnel, the placement of drinks on silver trays. Every detail mattered. Her pulse hammered in her ears. This was the moment. The officiant began to speak. Words about unity and devotion floated through the room, hollow and absurd. Soo-jin's gaze never left Hyun Jae-min. When the ceremonial wine was brought forward, Zola felt her spine stiffen. "There," she said quietly. "Tray at 3 o'clock." "I see it," Hyun Jae-min replied. Sang-ho watched closely as the server poured 2 glasses. Zola's fingers curled into fists. She wanted to stop it, to knock the glass away, to drag Hyun Jae-min out of the room and end it all right now. But if they did that, the truth would die with the plan. Hyun Jae-min took the glass. Their eyes met briefly. "You don't have to," she said under her breath. "I do," he replied. He raised the glass. Soo-jin lifted hers as well, smiling sweetly. "To new beginnings," she said. He drank. The world seemed to tilt. Zola counted silently. 1, 2, 3. Hyun Jae-min swayed. A murmur rippled through the guests. "Hyun?" Soo-jin reached for him, her voice sharp now. He staggered back, knocking into a chair. His glass shattered on the floor. 4, 5. His hand went to his chest. "No," Soo-jin whispered, her eyes widening, not in fear, but in calculation. Hyun Jae-min collapsed. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed. Chairs scraped back violently. Someone shouted for help. Zola was already moving. "Clear the area!" she yelled, dropping to her knees beside him. "Give him space!" She pressed her fingers to his neck. Nothing. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She forced herself to stay calm, even as panic screamed inside her skull. "This is part of it," she told herself. "This is part of it." But when she looked at his face, ashen, lips tinged faintly blue, her chest tightened painfully. "Zola," a voice whispered in her ear. "Status, cardiac arrest," she replied steadily. "Initiating protocol." She began CPR, hands firm, precise. Each compression felt like an eternity. "Come on," she muttered under her breath. "Stay with me." Soo-jin stood, frozen near the altar, her hands shaking just enough to sell shock. Sang-ho barked orders to security, his face thunderous. "This is it," he said quietly to Soo-jin. "He's done." Zola heard him. Rage flared in her chest. She pressed harder. After what felt like forever, paramedics rushed in, pushing past security. Zola stepped back reluctantly as they took over. The lead paramedic looked at her briefly. "How long?" 2 minutes, she replied. They worked quickly, efficiently. Then the lead paramedic looked up and shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said loudly. "Time of death?" "No," Zola snapped, standing abruptly. "He's not—" She stopped herself just in time. The room fell silent. Soo-jin let out a sob and collapsed to her knees. It was perfect. Too perfect. Zola's hands trembled as she backed away, her vision blurring. She forced herself to keep breathing. "This is not real," she told herself. "This is not real." The body was covered. The guests whispered in stunned disbelief. And somewhere inside the hotel, the real countdown began. 2 hours later, Zola stood alone in a private corridor, staring at her hands. They were still shaking. A door opened quietly behind her. "You did well," Director Min Seok said softly. She turned on him, fury blazing in her eyes. "If he's dead." "He isn't," Min Seok replied. "The serum worked exactly as designed. His vitals are suppressed. He's in a controlled coma." Her knees nearly buckled with relief. "Where is he?" she demanded. "Safe," Min Seok said. "For now." Before she could ask more, a commotion echoed from the ballroom. Soo-jin's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Lock down the exits." Zola's blood ran cold. She's not done, Zola said. No, Min Seok agreed. She wants to make sure he stays dead. Zola straightened, every muscle coiling with purpose. Then she's going to have to go through me, she said. As she moved toward the sound of raised voices and rushing footsteps, one truth burned clearly in her mind. The wedding had ended, but the real war was just beginning. Zola reached the ballroom just as the doors slammed shut. Metal locks clicked into place with a sound that echoed far too loudly in the stunned silence that followed. Security guards moved quickly, forming a perimeter around the exits, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. Guests whispered nervously, some crying openly now, others clutching phones that no longer had signal. Soo-jin stood at the center of it all, her veil discarded, her face composed in a way that no grieving fiancé should have managed. "No one leaves," she said firmly. "Not until we understand what happened." Zola pushed forward through the crowd, her eyes never leaving Soo-jin. "This isn't your jurisdiction." Soo-jin turned slowly, her gaze locking onto Zola's. For a brief second, the warmth vanished completely. "It is now," she replied. "You of all people should understand the need for order." Zola stopped a few feet away. Order doesn't come from pointing guns at innocent people. Soo-jin smiled faintly. Innocent is a matter of perspective. Sang-ho stepped up beside Soo-jin, his presence heavy, his eyes sharp as he scanned the room. "Find her," he murmured to one of the guards. "She's the last variable." Zola heard him. She moved before they could. Her elbow drove back into a guard's ribs. She spun, grabbing his wrist, twisting hard until his weapon clattered to the floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd as chaos erupted again. "Get down!" someone screamed. Zola ducked as a shot rang out, the bullet shattering a crystal column behind her. Glass rained down like ice. Soo-jin's voice cut through the panic. "Alive," she ordered calmly. "I want her alive." Zola sprinted, vaulting over overturned chairs, her mind racing. She couldn't fight them all. Not here, not with civilians everywhere. She needed to draw them away. She burst through a side door just as alarms began to wail, the sound shrill and disorienting. The corridor beyond was empty, lit only by emergency lights casting everything in red. Footsteps thundered behind her. She ran, her lungs burned as she tore through the service hallways, slipping through doors, slamming them shut behind her, buying seconds at a time. She skidded around a corner and nearly collided with someone. Director Min Seok grabbed her arm and pulled her into a narrow alcove. "This way," he whispered urgently. They ducked through a hidden panel just as guards rushed past, shouting. Inside, the air was cool and dim. The walls were lined with monitors showing camera feeds from all over the hotel. Min Seok locked the panel behind them. "She's accelerating," he said. "She wasn't supposed to move this fast." "She knows something's wrong," Zola replied. "She wouldn't lock the guests in unless she was trying to control the narrative." Min Seok nodded grimly. "She's planning to kill Hyun Jae-min publicly." Zola's heart slammed. "He's not here." "No," Min Seok said. "But she thinks he is." He pulled up a feed showing a private medical suite deep within the hotel. The covered body lay motionless on the bed, machines humming softly. "That room is a decoy," Min Seok continued. "We moved him an hour ago." Zola exhaled shakily. "Thank God." "But she doesn't know that," he added. "Which means she's about to expose herself." As if on cue, Soo-jin appeared on one of the screens, flanked by armed guards. She strode into the medical suite, her face cold and focused. "She's carrying a gun," Zola said. "She wants to be certain." Min Seok's jaw tightened. "If she shoots the body, she'll confirm murder. The fallout—" "I'll stop her," Zola said immediately. Min Seok grabbed her wrist. "You won't make it in time." Zola met his gaze. "Then reroute the feed." He hesitated. "To where?" Zola's eyes flicked to another screen. The ballroom. Hundreds of guests. Cameras still rolling. Let everyone see who she really is, Zola said. She thrives in shadows. Drag her into the light. Min Seok nodded once. Do it. The feeds shifted. Soo Jin raised her gun in the medical suite, her voice calm, almost gentle. I'm sorry it had to end this way, she said softly, aiming at the covered body. Her words echoed through the ballroom speakers. Gasps erupted. What is this? Someone shouted. Soo Jin froze, her eyes snapping to the camera she hadn't noticed. Her image filled the massive screens lining the ballroom walls. Hello, everyone, she said slowly, lowering the gun but not putting it away. I suppose there's no point pretending anymore. Zola watched from the control room, heart pounding. Soo Jin straightened, her composure returning like armor. Hyunjae Min was many things, she continued. But he was a liability, and liabilities are dealt with. Sang-ho appeared beside her on screen, his expression darkening as he realized what was happening. You said this was private, he hissed. Soo Jin didn't look at him. Plans change. Zola moved. She slipped out of the control room and into the corridor, moving with purpose now. The guards were distracted, confused. The power had shifted. She reached the medical suite just as Soo Jin turned away from the camera, fury blazing in her eyes. You! Soo Jin spat when she saw Zola. I should have killed you when I had the chance. Zola stepped inside, hands raised slightly, eyes never leaving the gun. You already lost, she said. Everyone's watching. Soo Jin laughed softly. They're watching a story, and I control the ending. She fired. The shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. Zola lunged forward, knocking Soo Jin's arm aside just enough for the bullet to tear into the wall instead of the bed. They collided hard, crashing to the floor. The gun skidded across the tiles. Soo Jin screamed in rage, clawing at Zola's face. You don't belong here, Zola shoved her back. Neither do you. They grappled fiercely, years of resentment and ambition pouring into every strike. Soo Jin fought with desperation now, her control slipping, her elegance cracking. Sang-ho rushed in, shouting orders, but Min Seok and armed agents poured in behind him, guns raised. Drop it! Min Seok yelled. Sang-ho froze, his eyes darting around wildly. Soo Jin saw it then, the end. Her gaze snapped to Zola, hatred burning bright. He chose you, she whispered, over everything. Zola didn't reply. Soo Jin lunged again, but this time Zola was ready. She caught her wrist, twisted sharply, and heard the bone snap. Soo Jin screamed. The agents moved in, restraining her, forcing her to the ground. Sang-ho sank to his knees, his face gray. You don't understand, he muttered. This empire needs blood. No, Zola said quietly. It needs to end. As they dragged Soo Jin away, she laughed weakly, her eyes never leaving Zola. This isn't over, she said. You think you've won? Zola watched her go, chest heaving. I think I survived. Hours later, the hotel was swarming with authorities. Guests were escorted out in stunned silence. Phones buzzed as footage spread like wildfire across the world. Zola stood alone on the terrace overlooking the sea, the night air cool against her skin. She heard footsteps behind her. Hyunjae Min stepped into view. Alive, breathing, real. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zola crossed the distance and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed sharply. You promised no more lies, she said, her voice shaking. He winced, then smiled faintly. I also promised to earn your forgiveness. She pressed her forehead against his chest, anger and relief crashing together. Don't ever do that to me again. I won't, he said softly. I swear. Below them, the waves continued their endless assault against the rocks, indifferent to power, betrayal, and survival. But Zola knew one thing with absolute certainty. The danger wasn't gone. It had only changed shape. And somewhere, someone was already watching the two of them walk away together, waiting for the next secret to surface. The sea was calm the morning they left Ulsan. Not peaceful, just quiet, in the way storms sometimes are after they've finished tearing everything apart. Gray clouds stretched thin across the horizon, and the waves rolled in slow, steady rhythms, as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. Zola stood on the deck of the small ferry, hands gripping the cold metal railing, eyes fixed on the water. The salt air filled her lungs, grounding her in a way nothing else could. For the first time in days, no alarms were screaming, no guns were drawn, no one was chasing her. Still, her body hadn't forgotten. Every sudden sound made her shoulders tense. Every reflection in the glass made her check for movement behind her. Hyun Jae-min watched her quietly from a few steps away. He looked different now, not just because he was alive, though that alone felt unreal, but because something heavy had been stripped from him. The groom, the heir, the almost dead man had been replaced by someone rawer, less polished, more human. "You're thinking too loudly," he said gently. She didn't turn. "You almost died loudly." A faint smile touched his lips. Fair. They stood in silence for a while, the ferry cutting through the water toward Seongdo Island, a place deliberately chosen for its isolation. No press, no power players, just rock, trees, and sea. A pause. "You didn't have to come with me," he said. Zola finally looked at him. "Yes, I did." He studied her face, the faint bruise along her jaw already fading, the exhaustion she hadn't bothered to hide. "You could have walked away after the arrests, after the camera stopped rolling." "And do what?" she asked quietly. "Go back to pretending my life didn't just explode." He nodded once. "I suppose pretending is harder after the truth." "Exactly." The ferry docked with a dull thud. Seongdo Island greeted them with quiet defiance. Wind-carved cliffs, narrow paths, small houses scattered like secrets. The kind of place people came to disappear or to heal. They rented a modest home near the edge of the island. White walls, blue shutters. The sea close enough that they could hear it breathing at night. The first few days passed slowly. Zola slept more than she had in years. She cooked simple meals, walked barefoot along the shore, let her body relearn what safety felt like, even if her mind lagged behind. Hyun Jae-min spent long hours on encrypted calls, issuing orders quietly, dismantling what remained of Sang, Ho's network, rerouting assets, shutting down accounts. Each call ended with a deeper frown. One night, Zola found him sitting alone on the steps outside, phone dark in his hand. "They're not done," he said without looking up. She sat beside him. "Neither are you." "They won't stop," he continued. "Not completely. Power doesn't like to be taken away." She watched the moonlight ripple across the water. "Then stop trying to be powerful." He turned to her, surprised. "Be better," she added. "There's a difference." Something softened in his eyes. "You always make it sound simple." "It's not simple," she said. "It's just honest." The days turned into a week. The world beyond the island buzzed relentlessly. Clips from the wedding circulated online. Soo-jin's face frozen on massive screens, the gun in her hand, Sang-ho's downfall. Some called Zola a hero, others called her a pawn, a few called her a threat. She didn't read the comments. One afternoon, as Zola returned from the market, she noticed a man standing near their gate. He wasn't dressed like a tourist. Too still, too observant. Her instincts flared instantly. She slowed her pace, hand slipping into her jacket pocket where a small blade rested. "Can I help you?" The man turned, offering a polite smile. "Apologies. I'm looking for Hyun Jae-min." Zola didn't move. "He's not available." "I expected as much," the man said calmly. "Please tell him this is from a friend." He handed her an envelope. Zola stared at it, her pulse quickening. "No names," she said. No, the man agreed. Only reminders. He walked away without another word, disappearing down the path. Zola stood there long after he was gone, the envelope heavy in her hand. When she showed it to Hyun Jae-min later, his expression darkened instantly. "Don't open it," he said. She met his gaze. "You don't get to decide that anymore." She opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Hyun Jae-min, standing on the ferry, taken from a distance. A message scrawled beneath it in neat black ink. Some debts survive death. Silence filled the room. "So," Zola said slowly, "we're not done." "No," he replied, "but we're not alone either." She folded the photo carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. "Next time, we don't wait for them to move first." A corner of his mouth lifted. "I was hoping you'd say that." That night they sat together on the beach, the fire between them crackling softly. "Do you regret saving me?" he asked quietly. She thought about the water, the fear, the gun, the lies, the almost loss. Then she shook her head. "No, I regret that the world is built the way it is." He nodded. "I want to tear it down." She glanced at him. "Start small," he smiled. "With you?" "With honesty," she corrected. "Everything else comes after." As the fire burned low and the waves whispered against the shore, the future stretched before them. Uncertain, dangerous, unfinished. But they were still standing. And somewhere beyond the island, someone was watching, waiting, planning. The secrets hadn't drowned. They had only learned how to swim. Thank you for staying with this story all the way to the end. If it made you feel something, tension, anger, hope, anything at all, take a second to subscribe and share your favorite moment in the comments. I read every single one, and they truly mean more than you know. Also, tell me what city or country you're watching from. I love seeing how far this story has traveled. Until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and keep your eyes open.